Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 43. Today we have a great episode for you. We've got friend of the show, reoccurring guest, Eric Oakley joining the show today. We're going to talk to Eric a little bit about his offseason, what he's got going on. We're also going to do a little bit of a way too early preview for the 2023 season and kind of get into what's going to be going on next year, get his thoughts on it. Before we get on to that, we have a quick word from a sponsor of today's show. I'm super excited to partner with today's sponsor, Aura. Aura is a super easy-to-use app that includes everything you need to stay safe online. Aura protects you from scammers and hackers by scanning the so-called dark web, where they can find emails, passwords, social security numbers, all the things that scammers and hackers would be looking for to sell your information. Aura will alert you if it finds any of this stuff right away. Aura also helps you fight back against those annoying websites that make all your information public, and they do this by requesting the automatic removal of your information from said websites. This helps prevent things like robocalls. Aura gives you real-time alerts on suspicious credit inquiries, such as if somebody was trying to open a credit card in your name. Their VPN helps you stay anonymous online by keeping your browsing information and personal information encrypted and protected. They also protect your devices from viruses, malware, spyware, and more, so the bad guys can't break in. You can also use Aura to manage what your kids do on your devices. You can restrict certain apps, set screen time limits, and set focus times to make sure your kids are doing their homework instead of binge watching YouTube. And their password manager helps you store and access online passwords super conveniently. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online. If you sign up right now with my link in the description, you can get a 2-week free trial from Aura. You'll be shocked at how much of your personal information Aura can find over that 2-week period and help you get protected. Go to the link here on the screen, aura.com/foundation disc golf to start your free trial. It's also linked below in the description. Now let's hop into the interview with Eric. All right, we welcome on the show now, reoccurring guest and friend of the show, Eric Oakley. Thank you so much for joining the show, Eric.
What's up, Trevor? It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to kind of have this episode be a little bit of a few things. You know, it'll be kind of our way too early, so to speak, 2023 season preview. But before we get into that, we just got to have a little bit of catch-up time. It's been a while. You were one of the first guests on the show. We've had like 40-some guests since then. So first off, just how's the offseason been going?
Pretty good. I had the first time I've gotten done with the season and been like, I need to not do anything for a while. Yeah. And I think I had a pretty rough year with hand injury to start the season, missed some tournaments. COVID part of the way through the season, missed some tournaments. And then wrecked. I got in a car accident, hit a deer, totaled the car. Didn't miss tournaments to that, but definitely lost a lot of mental energy there.
Right. Went
to Europe, came back, played some good tournaments, and had an interesting finish to the season. But I haven't ever felt that way where I've gotten done with the season and I'm like, all right, let's just keep going. So it definitely humbled me a lot this year how crazy a year can be, and made me thankful for those good years where nothing bad happened those good years. So it kind of all happened at once. So we're on good trend.
I've been hearing that a lot, honestly, like a lot of players just being burnt out after this year. I think the tour is just stepping up so much, and with all the stops on tour and they just continue to add them, like people are starting to get that off season and be like, oh, like I need to shut it down
and chill.
Yeah, it's hard to realize that like that might be the best thing for your game, to just be like, hey, I need to just give it a rest. But totally. I have been hearing that a lot. Do you feel like there's any part of you that's antsy to get back out and compete, or is it really just like enjoying the moment?
I'm in that mode now.
Okay.
But I had like a month where I was like, I was playing a little bit here and there, but when I was putting, I was practice putting, I was doing some running and working out a little bit. But now I'm in that like, let's turn it on, let's get fit, let's do some stuff. I'm starting to really push and hype up my intermittent fasting and working out every day. Let's hit the practice green. Maybe not this weekend when it's going to be freezing cold, but that's some forced days off for the holidays, so I could be okay with that. I'm getting into that mode. I have a really good friend here, Bueno, who he's a masters golfer, and he's like super motivated and wants to grind and wants to get better. So he's like, I'm always down to go play with him, and like that feels good to have somebody who's also working on their game while I also am. Like, and I definitely have things that I'm working on, and most of it is mental more than it is like form mechanics and everything. It's just like, how can I approach practices and rounds to be more even keeled, to give myself the same mindset I had at the tournaments I played well this past season, where I was just okay with mistakes. I was okay with things, and I saw where I wasn't okay with things, and my play suffered because of that. So it's like, all right, something we can work on right now.
Right. Yeah, I think that's huge, having somebody to go along with you. I think that having like intentional practice and figuring out how to not feel like practice is wasteful is such a struggle in disc golf, because it is a sport with so many different facets and so many different ways to practice it. And it's like, when is it time for me to go to the gym? When is it time for me to film myself? When do I just need to play? Like, that is the difficulty. Are you like, so you mentioned, you're pretty much every day. Is that like, are you literally 7 days a week, always practicing something, or do you filter in off days into your schedule?
Some off days of throwing for sure, but I run every day. It's something I've been doing for, I don't even know what number I'm at. I have them logged, but I haven't posted them. So, I've been doing that. I'd still do that every day. I'm doing workouts, pretty small workouts, because I don't want to go and ruin myself to where then I don't feel like I can throw, but I want to do stuff that's going to benefit me, to where I feel like I'm making small gains. So kind of just doing at least something, and I'm doing that probably 4 to 5 days a week. But a big part of it is I gotta shed some weight. I went to the doctor and saw the numbers, and I was like, "Yo, no, we're not that fat." So, and I don't necessarily feel like I look that fat, but I'm chunky, dude. So I definitely need to do something about that. So that's a focus, change of the diet, that kind of stuff. So basically, let's roll some really good habits into the season, to where I feel super good and I have something in place, and I've already done it for 2 to 3 months, that it's just like, just keep going. Just push this forward. You'll be fine. Your body's can handle it. And I think my body will be thankful if I shed some weight too. Like, my knees and everything will be happy.
I feel that struggle, man. I feel like I hit like that age where my metabolism is starting to hit a wall.
Dude, for real.
I hit a dad. I'm a dad now, so I feel like I have like the dad bod situation.
Comes in, dude. I don't have kids, but I have a dad bod. So
it happens, dude. It's a real thing, and I'm working out all the time, and it's the bummer is it does come down to the diet. I feel like it's totally what it is. But
I love food too much, and that's that's my crutch. I'm just
Same.
like, all right, let's be smart. If we really are trying to be a professional athlete, like I watched actually like most of last season, I was watching a bunch of soccer documentaries, like the Leeds documentary and the Sunderland documentary, and I'm seeing all these players. It's like, this player's 34, and I'm like looking at myself, I'm 34, and it's like, and he's grinding and doing all these things. It's like, I'm not doing those things. So that's where I'm at now, where I just need to just be better and just give myself the best chance. Like, I don't need to be a soccer player where I train that hard, because that's not the type of athletes that disc golfers are. Right. Being fit helps. So maybe being a super fit soccer player would be great, but realistically, that's not going to translate to guaranteed results, where I think proper understanding of my body and things like that will get me there.
Yeah. Well, one thing you certainly have in your favor this year, last year, as you mentioned, you had that hand injury right before the season started, delayed the start to your season, like, huge bummer. This year, as long as I haven't like dug up anything, hand is good.
We're good.
So this year, everything is on schedule. Is that like just a huge relief to you being able to start your tour on your terms this year?
100%. I generally like Vegas, and I play decently well there. I know Jeff Chaqua is always working on stuff. I think as the Pro Tour community and the touring players are just like, stop doing the 3 courses. But at the same time, there's too much money, and it's too good of a warm-up for the season to get out and rip shots and kind of rip wherever you want to some accuracy. Right. And that is kind of nice, so you can get a little dialed in. I actually, right before this, signed up for Goat Hill in February, so 2 weeks before that. So having a course that I personally love. I love Goat Hill as one of my favorite courses in the country. So that's something that'll be a nice warm up for that, which there's a chance that I do stay out for just like have a little 3-week stint where I go to Goat Hill, play that, take the week off and just travel around, do some stuff in Rancho when I like for my times with Discmania, or go up to Vegas early and just chill there and get plenty of practice in so I can settle in, or fly back home, fly back. And that's just like, we'll figure that out here in the next little bit, but I'm excited to just go and play and start the season, like you said, on my terms.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's never any good feeling like you're getting left behind and like other people are getting that head start. Because really, like you mentioned, like getting out to Vegas, it is a great starting event because you can kind of just air it out and shake off those jitters that you might have going into the season.
Totally.
Another thing that you had going on last time we talked nearly a year ago, this was right after you had parted ways with your longtime sponsor, Dynamic Discs.
Yep.
How has the last year been as a retail sponsor player and having that freedom that it's allowed you?
Incredible. I would say it's having just done my taxes and seen what I was able to bring in as a business was awesome. And all those opportunities that Infinite and ThoughtSpace were able to provide. Upper Park was also a great sponsor, but we are parting ways going into this season, which is totally fine. I appreciate Martin and Upper Park and everything they did for me. They're an awesome bag company. So if people are looking for it, don't pass up on Upper Park. But I just needed to go in a different direction. So definitely always. I have something in the works with a European company, which is kind of cool, and I'll be making a little announcement and posting about it here soon. I don't know if it's more like a partnership or collaboration more than it is a deal. So I just want to help them grow a little bit in the States. So that'll be fun, and you just stay tuned to my socials for that. But working with Infinite and ThoughtSpace was, the artistic things we were able to do with my stamps was, I think, helped them stand out in the world a little bit. And having, I can tackle, the ThoughtSpace fans. Cool, they'll get a Pathfinder. Cool, the Infinite fans will get this. Cool, I got the Castoplast Berg. The Castoplast fans are all about this. I did some zones that the Discraft fans were. So I was able to touch on where, you only throw for Trilogy? Oh, well, I don't really throw Trilogy. And it's like, cool, there goes a sale. Where in this regard, I was able to kind of dive and spread my web into all of the different markets, which is awesome. So I definitely have some cool collaborations coming up this season, or at least discussions of collaborations. Obviously, the companies have to Infinite and them have to come up together. And make that happen too. And then the biggest collaboration is Clash. I don't know. So the spice is sick. I've loved your comment personally where you said name. It's perfect. And it's the disc is super good. I don't know if you guys got any, but that
was actually the next thing I was going to talk about because the spice is instantly into my bag.
Let's go.
I had a Sexton Firebird in that slot, and I liked that the spice felt a little bit deeper than the Sexton Firebird. I felt a little more controllable, and I like that right out of the box. I really liked the flight it had.
Sure.
You're able to get really nice turning forehand flights and get that flex shot. So it literally went straight into my bag, and I was wondering, I was going to ask, how did that collaboration come about, and why should everybody be throwing the spice? Hype it up.
Let's go. Bobby Brown is working for Clash, and we had a great relationship with our time at Dynamic Discs, and it turned into this opportunity where he's like, here's a box of discs, just try them. Like you don't have to throw any of them. It's fine. And they sat in the car for a little bit, and then I was getting ready to go to Europe, and like kind of right before that, I just pulled them out when I was messing around at Idlewild, and was just like, oh my god, these are actually really good. Pepper was super surprising, and like ended up being something I really liked. The popcorn replaced my Fierce instantly. The berry was like, this has a chance to challenge my Claymore, which then led to me losing my Claymore in Norway. So that I brought the berry as a backup to it because and before I left for Europe, Bobby was like, have a meeting with them. They want to talk to you. They want to have a discussion, and that's kind of where it all met up. I met up with Randy, Timo, and Marku, who are all the guys over there, and it was just like, this is the type of company I can see myself working for, and this is the type of company I would love to support and work with. So then things we kept discussing, and they brought up the idea of me designing a disc. And as a professional athlete, designing any product in the sport is something you dream of.
Oh, yeah.
I would imagine, when Michael Jordan was designing his shoe and talking to Nike about what he wanted to see on different ones, like that had to be so cool. And to a lesser extent, I'm not Michael Jordan here, but I got
within our scope,
totally. So it was awesome, and they kind of needed a Firebird Felon type of slot.
Sure.
And Randy, who's actually a very good golfer, his name's Rowley. He's the guy over there. He's their English speaking guy that's Finnish, and he had some ideas of it. And he was just he kept saying things about discs that I used to throw. He was talking about an old Firebird he used to have, and I was like, I had that exact same run, and I was like, oh, we would love for it to feel like that. And I was like, cool, I would love for it to be this depth, like a Scepter or a Felon that I've already been throwing and I was used to. So we were just kind of playing in with this, and it came out a little bit faster, but so I think it's going to be slotted as a 10 speed as far as the numbers go, but I think that's a good thing, because it's good powered down where it doesn't feel like you're losing it to the speed of the disc.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's in every man's overstable fairway, where I didn't create another Lucid X Felon to where it's only good for pros and it's just a utility disc for the rest of the players. This is like a utility disc to almost like a perfect overstable fairway for everyone, and it's a really versatile disc for people who have a higher arm speed. So I think we hit a home run, and the best part is with Clash, they have so much control over their production that we could make a run that's overstable.
Right.
And that'd be an awesome run that happens that everybody's like, oh, cool. I definitely want the anniversary box ones for this like little bit straighter, but I got one of the so-and-so runs that's overstable and I can use this as a wind fighter. So it allows you to bag multiples, which is great. And, if they end up coming out, I want the majority to fly like the anniversary box spices, because I think that's a pretty special flight in my opinion.
It's sick. That's the one I have, and I started throwing it and loved it immediately, and I was really pleasantly surprised with. Yeah, I agree. As something, even if it is in that 10 speed slot, it feels very controllable. And I loved it on the backhands. Like I was really loving the backhand flight. A lot of times I end up putting that fairway in there in that slot, and I just kind of throw forehands with it. But I was liking it on the hyzer lines with the backhand. Yeah, I was throwing some S shots with it.
Big flexes.
I'm definitely super pumped about the full production of them and getting them in. And
totally.
It was immediately in my bag. It was
Love
super sick.
That makes me hyped, dude.
And
Let's
the spice, what a name! Like what?
Yeah.
Was that your idea?
We had a couple ideas, and it was we ran through a bunch of them, but then Spice came up, and we were like, it's a little too close to the splice. But it was like, but it fits our verbiage of what Clash is doing, and. I think, there's plenty of Spice Girls things you can do, add a little bit of spice to your bag. And I think that's something that, like, there's so many ways to market it that it was like, this is a win. And I think one part of what we're going to do is I'm planning on doing some more media content going forward as just as you should. Like, look at Brody and Ezra. They're killing it. Like, and there's a reason their brands are still growing and have exponential gains. Like they can play but they put out a video and they're killing it. So something that I want to follow and have done in the past, but definitely want to pick up on this year. But the whole goal would be, let's do a spice highlight of every course I'm going to throw the spice on a hole every tournament because it's that type of disc. So we'll do a spice highlight or like spice up your round or spice up your whatever. We have the ideas. So it'll be cool that whoever I have on the video has to throw the spice as well on that hole, even if they're sponsored players with other companies. But I think it's going to be awesome.
That's super exciting. I think, Clash is a sick company to work with. I really like all the stuff they've been doing. I've been throwing the honey. I've got a few different Clash discs working.
Bomb, dude.
They do.
I got my buddy Zach Benson. He's the king of the 8 holes. I was like, he was throwing some stable Emperors, and I was just like, dude, I think you just need a little bit less. And I was like, yeah, we could beat up an Emperor and get you there. But then I was like, try this honey. Like, I've heard people talk about it, and he was like, oh, that's it. And he's like also looking at some Pharaohs too, but it's like the honey was sick. And I think there's some salts that feel similar, but have a little bit of drift to them, and those bomb too. So it's like, Clash is in a place where being in charge of their own production allows them to have that kind of creativity, and they can adjust runs and change things where, where like an Infinite and a Thought Space, they're molded by other companies. You can run into sometimes of delays on that stuff, but their products speak for themselves as well. So it's like it's a cool place to have, and I think Clash has a really bright future in disc golf because of that fact, and the fact that they're excited and they want to make the sport better. You know, they took a chance on Nico, and I don't think it was a bad bet. You know, things went down the way they did, but you know, it's a live and learn. It helped. It did help Clash get out into the public's eye, but I think the things that we're now doing are going to help push Clash into a really good direction, and you know, hype them up. Especially with some of the players we're adding this season too, so it's gonna be good.
Ooh, all right. I like to hear that. So I want to transition a little bit into a bit of a preview for the upcoming season.
Yeah.
Just to get started, we've got a loaded schedule this year. Some new events, some new formats of events. It's almost overwhelming looking at it. So looking at that schedule, are there any events that kind of jump out at you that you're really pumped for in particular?
Let me pull up that schedule just so I have it, because I know the schedule pretty well. Austin, the Open at Austin looks sweet. Right. Austin, Texas is sweet. I grew up in Dallas, Fort Worth area of Texas, so not really close, but every time I've gone down to Austin and done stuff, like the courses are just sick. So that looks awesome. Definitely looking forward to going back to Sula.
Yeah,
that was. Dude,
of course, is crazy. Of course, is crazy.
You like legitimately, like you guys should just like plan it and go.
We're trying to, man. We're trying to get over there.
I think Sula is the one to go to over European Open.
Really?
In a weird way, European Open is like the one of the best. That was going to be the next one I talk about. Obviously, it's the next weekend. But Sula, the fjords and everything that we were able to see and the courses we were able to play and the love we felt was like it like what the vibe you get at MVP where everybody is just so energetic. It's like it's the MVP of Europe. That's what awesome. I feel like of that event. Where European Open is like feels more like a US DGC. It feels professional and prolific. Not to take away, like not to say that MVP and Sula aren't professional. They're just different. That's bringing everybody together and making and being everyone so excited about disc golf at those events, where European Open and USDGC are so much about the professionalism of the sport, which is also very good. So that's where definitely those, and also Discmania Open PEI.
Yeah,
I cannot wait for that one.
Yeah,
so
I'm definitely I think Sula. I watched all the coverage last year, and like that course is incredible. And I hope the field is stronger this year. Like I hope more people get out to that event. I think they will. But yeah, I think the schedule in general just looks pretty crazy. One thing that the Pro Tour is doing is they're kind of expanding on their classifications with the new Elite Plus events. Two of them being Ledgestone and Portland. What do you think about that change? Do you like it?
I do. It is a little weird in sports. Because if we go based on like soccer, hockey, football, whatever. I guess not football. Football's all record based, but like anything that is like wins are worth X amount of points. Yeah. Right. It feels weird to say that like a Silver Series is like, oh, you're going to go play this game, but you get 50% points. Yeah. And like, oh, you win this game, you get 150% points. So it's like, it feels a little weird, but again, I think that that's a good thing for the sport as disc golf goes, that we should be a little different. We should see how this works. And I do think that those events being treated as bigger makes sense because Portland is phenomenal. Ledgestone is phenomenal. Like, they're really, really good courses that feel like they should be majors anyways. Right. They definitely are a little bit elevated from other courses, and that's not to say that all the other Pro Tours aren't there. It's just sometimes the infrastructure allows for that to happen. That's why Ledgestone is so good, is because Nate Heinold has the backing of the entirety of the entire city metroplex that he's a part of. He is able to, everybody in Peoria loves Nate Heinold, everybody in Eureka, everybody in Washington loves Nate Heinold because they know they're bringing people and making things better. So he's kind of able to make things happen.
Yeah.
And same thing happens in Portland with the crew out there in Portland is amazing, and Jeff having a good tie with that about making those courses be as good as they are. So it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think it's a cool way to see the Pro Tour like playing around with higher standards for certain events and like kind of like slowly implementing that. Another thing that the Pro Tour has been implementing starting last year and then kind of bringing into this year is their postseason format, adding in the playoff events. This year is a little bit of an interesting twist there where there's worlds in between the playoff events.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that and just the way the postseason's been shaped overall?
Seeing that, I mean, I went into the postseason and played terribly. It like I was like, yeah, it sucks, but like no, that's not. it. I think the format is good, and I think that there's plenty that could be adjusted with how the scoring is done. Like, for example, I have to use myself, and this is why my woe is me moment where I played well at Champions Cup. I played well at European Open. I played well at Worlds. Guess what? Only 2 of those 3 counted, and those were worth 150 points. I played well at Worlds, and I gained like no points because it dropped Champions Cup,
right,
or European Open, whichever one. It doesn't matter. It was just like that sucked for me because it's like I would love for all of those to have counted because that might have actually put me into a better position to make the Pro Tour finals. But that's not how they have it set up. So I don't necessarily agree with the whole system. I know that part of that system is that you don't have to play every event. But here's the other part. The other side of the coin is you as a player are going to play every event because it's your best opportunity and giving yourself the best odds to have, one, not only the best seed, but also the best opportunity to make that because the potential for that money is so good. It's why Ricky Wysocki beat Eagle McMahon a few years back because Ricky Wysocki played every single Silver Series event. And if you look at the point difference, the Silver Series were the only thing that mattered at that point because Eagle outplayed him at every single Disc Golf Pro Tour event, basically, not every one, but most of them. He was the better Disc Golf Pro Tour player, but Ricky played so many events that those Silver Series points made him the point champion. And I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing, but also there's the side of the coin that it is the right thing to do because he did play all of the Pro Tour events. So how do you look at it?
It's weird because the Pro Tour is trying to find that balance, I guess, between like, do they want to make a tour that players are encouraged to play all the events and it almost feels like a necessity? Because it's very hard to say, like, is the structure they've put out encouraging either end of the coin? Because there is that increased probability if you play all the events, you give yourself the best chances with the drops. But also because there's drops, you can have that off season. And like Silver Series, the fields are starting to get stronger at those events, and it's becoming interesting to see. And then you have the wraparound events too, and it's like now, is there ever really going to be an off season? Are they going to wrap the tour around? So that's just going to be an interesting thing to find out, especially when you have so many players that are really grinding on tour that they will play every event no matter what. It's hard to have an off season if you don't give an off season. If you don't say this,
and
is
if you
the
don't
time to
force
take off.
breaks too,
right?
Like if it's an A tier that is not a part of the tour and somebody decides to go play that, fine. But the moment you put that Disc Golf Pro Tour tag on there, the money's good, the courses are good, it's going to be a well-run event. Like the standards that have to be met are there. You're not showing up putting on Mach 3 baskets. Yeah. Generally, you're going to have decent enough tee pads, and courses are going to be good. So it's like as a player, yes, by not counting all the events, you don't have to play them all, but that's. On paper, yes, sure, I get it. But in actuality, that's just not how it works. The top echelon of players will take time. They can take time off because they can afford it. But anybody who is constantly finishing anywhere from 15th to 35th, they know that I need opportunities. I need to give myself as many opportunities because I break out at a couple of them and I give myself that cushion. And you never know when that weekend is going to be for those players because I feel like anybody who's finishing 15th to 35th is not far off from having a weekend that puts them in the top 5.
Right.
It is. They are not very far off from that. But you have those top 10 players that are there all the time. But it's there.
And with Pro Tour points, because those top 5 finishes are so valuable, if you skip a weekend, like I'll use Brody as an example. He had a third place finish at DDO. That was worth so many points for him.
It's
and
crazy.
if that's the weekend you miss, you just missed out on that
Everything.
opportunity.
Yeah.
And all it takes is one of those, and that's huge. And another thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is where these points are going to get even more important, is the tour card system that is slowly working its way in. We used to talk about the tour card 3 years ago on Grip Locked or whatever, and people would be like, that's never going to happen. And then it's slowly working its way in now.
Yeah.
But the Pro Tour has started to implement now to where they're throwing out, top 80 MPO, top 50 FPO, and they're really starting to firm up what's going to happen. As they're kind of doing that, and they're positioning themselves for a much stricter qualifying system as the tour is growing in strength and numbers. Do you think this is good for the tour overall, and what kind of impact do you think it's going to have on the pro scene in general?
I guess I haven't looked too much into like how one would break into that, because if me being qualified this year means I am playing every Pro Tour event. Yeah. Which gives me a really good opportunity to stay in that top 80 for next year. Like, I could play okay and play kind of actually like doo-doo, and I'll probably stay in the top 80 if I play every single event.
Yeah.
That gets weird, because then there might be players who are playing better but only got to play a couple of events that I just beat out just by the fact that I have the volume and compared to their finishes. Right. So I guess I haven't done the research or looked into it of how one would break into being on tour more.
So what I've heard from what I've seen, and I believe I'm remembering this correctly, there is going to be basically a proving grounds tour of sorts that that people are going to be able to
qualify
get
for the
tour cards based on, kind of like your web.com tour, that situation. Yeah. But it does seem that a lot of it at the beginning, it is realistically, 80 people deep in the Pro Tour standings is, you get, like you said, you get to the 80th and you could easily make it as a serious touring player, somebody who's established. But, the tour gets stronger every year, and what's really happening is the ability to get into a Pro Tour event without a Pro Tour card as the years go on here is going to start getting really, really difficult. There's going to be limited exemptions for the sponsors of the event and whatnot, but I think it's certainly going to make things very cutthroat, especially as the tour gets a little bit tougher, because you will get to the point pretty soon, and it's happening to some extent already. I know an example was like Scott Stokely wanted to do a full tour and wasn't really able to get into every event. Yeah. But you're going to have guys, pretty soon you're going to have names that you recognize have to post on Instagram and be like, didn't earn my tour card this year, I can't play a Pro Tour event. Like that's a reality. Do you feel like that the pro scene, as that continues to implement, is going to get a little more hostile? Do you feel like there's going to be some more competitiveness when that's at stake?
I'd hope not. I hope it would stay more like people would be hyping each other up. Like, there are people you want to continue to see on tour, that you want to continue to see get opportunities to be successful. So I would imagine that's on the Pro Tour's mindset of that it's not only going to be the same 80 people for the next 5 years, and that's when things get stale. It's better when we have somebody like an Aaron Gossage that pops off. Gannon Burr's come up from being young and just shredding. It's like they might not have had the opportunity if they weren't able to break into it. They could have lost out on that. So I think there's a level of still creating those opportunities for those players to get in. And there have been a lot of things that have been floated around amongst players that I think are all great ideas, but eventually it's like we would love for disc golf to continue to be a place where there's a path for professionals to make it on tour. And if it ends up being you play your local events, you get really good, you start to get better, you get a couple sponsors, then you're playing that web.com level tour, that's where you have to go to then get here. A lot of us didn't do that, but a lot of us just dove headfirst into a Pro Tour and figured it out. So that those events might actually be a good proving grounds, and also helps those players build up to be able to sustain that level on the Pro Tour. So once they're there, they don't just fizzle out because they can't handle it. They're
Certainly.
prepared for it.
Yeah.
So that could be a part of it. I don't know.
Definitely. Yeah, I think as long as the path that, like you mentioned, is there and it's
clear. Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, in years past, a decade ago, the path to pro is basically get in your car, take all the money you've got, and sign up. Yeah, basically just dive into it. One thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is, ask you kind of what are some players that we should be looking out for this year?
Totally.
Some players that you're thinking about. We'll kind of do both divisions, so we'll start with FPO. Who are some FPO players that you think people should be looking out for this year?
Two of my favorite players. One is already a very proven, Missy Gannon. I am such a huge fan. I just think she's getting better at putting, which is kind of wild, and she's understanding her game more, and she's got her caddy Tom, who is like they're always sneakily going to be there, and so always have eyes on her. But Maria Oliva, another one of my favorite players on FPO. She's a baller. I do know where she's going, and I think she's going to be given a boost of support and confidence. Which, when Maria's throwing the disc well, she's got probably I think she has up there with some of the best backhand form in the FPO division.
I would agree.
So definitely. On the lookout. That's a good question. I mean, you can't rule out the Montejuanos. I think Alexis is, she practices with Val. That Alexis is also very close to having just breakout event after breakout event after breakout event, because she's very close. Like, she's always been there. She's just she's earning her stripes with each event. I mean, those are the three that definitely immediately pop into my mind. So
no, those are good
great
picks.
golfers.
I think that those are some players who certainly are right there at this, ready to break through that ceiling.
Yeah, one of them could easily just pop off and win a pro tour. Like, obviously Missy's won pro tours, but for Maria and Alexis, they've been there. They've been within a couple throws and a couple decisions from potentially even pushing for one. So.
For sure.
Cool to see.
All right, so MPO players, other than yourself, who should we be looking out for this year?
Jake Mon. Dude,
okay.
That guy.
He's a big guy. He's a big guy.
And he's so good. He comes from a good family. I got to play with him. So my round at Worlds was him 17, Cole Redallen 17, Silas Schultz 18, and I'm 34. I felt ancient on that card. But what I saw from Jake was he doesn't have what Silas and Cole had of this outrageous distance. He's Mr. Consistent, which is and he's still growing and understanding, and he's learning, which is wild. So he might get to having that same type of distance in some time, but he doesn't make many mistakes. He understands his game and he just plays it. So that's a player that I am interested to see how his trajectory. I mean, we saw him at USDGC pop off. Obviously, didn't have the round he wanted when he was on lead card, but that showed his potential of what his that's not even his ceiling. That's just that's just him, letting people know he's here. And a friend of his, Evan Scott, which is another. I think as he continues to mature and grow and understand and grow into his body, he's another player that has outrageous potential as a player. He's just I've played a couple rounds with him, and I'm thinking, this kid, he's 17, 18 years old, and I'm he's not, and then he just shreds and beats me by plenty, because he's just again, he's in that same level of Jake of super consistent, trusts his discs, and they both have this little bit of Gannon Burr in them, where Gannon is blind to certain things that are, but it's he is blind to the danger,
right? Because
he's so confident, and I think that those kids, and I think that's what I'm seeing with a lot of the up and coming players and younger kids, is that that nobody's breaking down a course like Nate Sexton. They're breaking down courses, and they're just pedal to the metal type of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is pretty wild to see. So those two definitely stand out. I'd put somebody that I got to travel around with, and I know he's super motivated. Somebody like James Proctor, I think is going to do well. And these are homies. Yeah. Chandler Fry, I think is due because he showed that both of those players showed that they're there. They just need to just tighten up a few things, and then it's like cool. That's top 10 all the time.
Yeah.
And you'll love to see it. So definitely got to hype those guys up.
Those are some good picks. So I did want to ask. I've had some people talk about a lot of talk about Gannon Burr.
Yeah.
Obviously, ceiling is just unfathomable. Just
he needs to chill out.
Yeah, he does. He does need to chill out. My question
but please
is,
don't chill, because I actually wouldn't mind seeing what could happen. So,
do you think by the end of the 2023 season that he'll be the undisputed best player in the world?
I think that is a likely option, or a likely thing to have happen. I think there's also, it's like we need to see what major winner Gannon Burr looks like going into the season, because you can have that kind of hangover going into a season. You've seen it with the Rams won the Super Bowl and they look not great this year. So it's like that kind of stuff can happen as the transitions go. It's hard to repeat and do that, but I think that what we're seeing and what is potentially there is that he's been elevated by Paul, Rick, Eagle, Calvin, Simon, and the rest of them. Like, he's been elevated by those players to understand that that's the level of play he needs to play at to win.
Oh yeah,
and he's like starting here. It's like an Mbappe. Like we just watched the World Cup. It's the same thing of like, he understood that he needed to play to a Messi level, and he won a title and then had to live up to that, and is showing that he's capable, and he's 23. So it's the same level with Gannon of, he is being shown by a handful of the greatest players that have ever played disc golf, and he's able to just, this is the base. This is where I need to live, and he's going to train and do all those things for it. Gannon also comes from it's like similar to Jake. He comes from a good family where it was supported, and he's been given the opportunities, and it's like I feel like his family showed him the door, and he plowed right through it and went for it and understood what it took to get there. And he's had good role models. It's just like, it's a really deadly combination when you put all those things together, and then you like throw in some natural talent,
right?
And then it's like, all right, good, you're ready to go. So I don't think that statement is far off, my friend. So I've heard the arguments.
Last year he had the best average finishing place of anybody. I mean, after that major win, it's certainly, the expectations will be high. I think that the key with Gannon is that I can see the instinct that he has, and I don't think that he breaks under pressure. He took that early loss last year in Vegas, but I don't really think that was a pressure situation. I think that it was just it was a tough stretch against a guy who was unbeatable at the time. So
yeah, Drew had his weekend. Like that was it. Like that was kind of what happened. It's like that's what we knew Drew was capable of, and it took Drew having his best weekend. I would say he played better golf here than he did when he won Portland, without a doubt, and that was awesome to watch. And Gannon wasn't even thought about as a person who would be potentially challenging for the win, but Drew's always been in the conversation especially since he won Portland. But even since as far back to when Drew was the Gannon.
Right.
Because Drew was this up and coming player for a while that everybody was like, everybody saw him at the Memorial, and he's just ripping 500-foot hyzers, and you're like, wow, this is crazy. And we've seen what's been able to come of Drew. He's a mainstay and one of the top 20 golfers on tour for sure. And Gannon immediately put himself in that same place. So it's cool to see. It's really cool to see.
Definitely. Well, there is certainly a lot to look forward to for next season. It's hard to believe that it's only 2 months away, but it also feels like the longest wait ever, just getting there and getting back to disc golf.
For real.
But hopefully everything works out for you this season. No injuries until then.
Yeah.
No
taking care of the body, just playing
Yeah.
disc golf, being smart, not doing anything too crazy. I'm feeling really good, and getting this
Yes.
right, I think, is the best part, man. I can't stress it enough. Of if you know, when I've played my best, I've been unfazed, which is great.
Well, we'll have to have you back on after you win your Pro Tour this year, and
Let's do it, man.
That'll be how it is. But
Heck
thank
yeah.
you so much for joining the show, Eric. It's always
Appreciate you,
great
Trevor.
talking with you and chatting a little disc golf.
Always.
Awesome.
Cheers, man.
All right. Thanks once again to Eric for joining the show today. It was really cool catching up with Eric. It's been a while since we had him. He was one of our original guests. It's kind of getting to that time where I'm starting to invite people back on my show that I've had before. Now that we've been doing this for a year, it's good to catch up, get some more perspective on people that we may have only had a short conversation with before. Eric is always great to have on. Really cool talking to him about his offseason, kind of how things have changed for him and the way he's approaching it, and also get some opinion on how he thinks the season structure is going with the Pro Tour and kind of get some insight into that. But other than that, we'll be back next Thursday. Another great guest. We'll see you then.